I think she's been after people who are extraordinarily rich for quite a long time now, and I don't know whether they're not interested in her or she hasn't fancied them, but she's still hanging on to Harry because she can't find the right person. I mean, if you remember, the Queen said to her cousin, the late Queen said to her cousin, I felt that Meghan didn't actually love him and didn't really care for him.
There was a time when Prince Harry could step into any room and instantly light it up. Yes, he was royalty, but more than that, he was genuinely likable. The rebellious prince who broke protocol, yet somehow made the world love him even more for it. But those golden days feel like a fading photograph now, because here in 2025, Harry isn't just drifting out of the spotlight, he's being quietly ignored by the very circles that once worshipped his every move. And if you look closely, you can see it written all over Meghan too. She knows it.
I know for a fact that there have been meetings with billionaires in Los Angeles. And so if something romantic presented itself, maybe at some point she would go there. Because the thing is, Angela, if you look at her whole life, she has been a social climber, hasn't she?
It's shocking how fast the tide has turned. The same Hollywood elites who once gushed over the Sussexes now ghost them like they never even mattered. Event invitations? Bone dry. Tabloid praise? Completely gone. What's taken its place is something stranger, a suffocating silence, one far more brutal than any public takedown. No one is declaring Harry finished, but they're behaving as if he simply doesn't exist. And that right there is the real blow. The whispers began when A-listers suddenly stopped pulling him into their private circles. Publicists were reportedly warning clients to steer clear because being seen with Harry meant headlines and not the flattering kind. Even a harmless dinner chat risked resurfacing on a podcast the next morning, twisted into scandal.
No,
With the millionaire, with the million, I think she's
or a
been after
billionaire she wants.
Sorry, billionaire. What? I mean, the poverty-stricken millionaire.
She doesn't want a pauper. She doesn't want another pauper Angela like Harry.
Exactly.
You know that he's not
Exactly.
rich enough for her. Okay.
Of course not.
That's the fear, and honestly, it's not without reason. Harry's habit of spilling private tea through interviews, books, and docuseries has made him look less like a prince and more like a liability. Behind closed doors, the reaction is even harsher. One Hollywood producer reportedly labeled him the exiled royal who won't stop talking. Another insider cut straight to the point, saying he had a shot, he blew it. And here's the sting, these aren't critics from the outside. These are the very same people who once flooded Instagram with glowing selfies beside him, who praised his charity work and bragged about being close to royalty. Those same voices have now moved on without looking back. But Meghan, she isn't taking Harry's decline quietly. Not at all. In fact, she's pushing back hard.
But I've got to find the right person to get married. So it wasn't nasty. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that. You know, you're jealous of a happy marriage. You don't have to be spiteful, but it makes you long for it yourself.
Sources say Meghan is livid, furious that the empire she tried to build around their names is now slipping through her fingers. Furious that her husband, the man she once risked everything to stand beside, is drifting into forgettable territory. And insiders whisper that she's already pivoting, not just reassessing their public brand, but reevaluating Harry himself. Let's be real, Meghan has never been the type to sit back and wait for someone else to catch up. She's always thrived on control, strategy, and optics. Now, with the public eye drifting away from their joint narrative, she's allegedly shifting gears. Some claim she's already forging alliances that don't involve Harry at all, new projects, new networks, and maybe even a new man. And whether that last part is fact or just tabloid noise, the impact is the same. It plants doubt, and that's powerful.
But Meghan couldn't stand any of it. You know, when they went to Australia soon after they were married, and she was just beginning to be, well, she was pregnant, so they say, she was incandescent that she wasn't going to get money for it. She thought that everything she went to, she should be paid. So she was absolutely furious.
Perception is everything, and Meghan's body language is screaming solo. Insiders close to the couple claim her focus has narrowed. She's pouring more energy into solo ventures, taking meetings alone, and mapping out moves that seem designed to leave Harry out of the picture. One source even went as far as to say it looks like she's pre-building an escape plan. And Harry? He feels it. Those around him describe a man suddenly unsure of his own footing, watching the ground shift beneath him. He's still trying to smile through the rejection, showing up at events and dropping the occasional upbeat update. But the energy has shifted, it's less confident now, and far more desperate.
And also, she did not want to walk behind Catherine. She thought it was ridiculous. And if you go back and see lots of photographs, you see that, film, she would be pulling Harry.
Because when the applause fades, even the most charismatic royals begin to flinch. Harry has reportedly floated the idea of returning to the UK, not forever, but long enough to reset, reconnect, and remind the world he's still relevant. But here's the catch. That move may not have been his alone. Some insiders claim it was Meghan's way of testing him, using him to manage optics, while she carefully plays her next hand from a distance. And just like that, the glossy fairy tale begins to unravel. When Harry touched down in the UK, his face said it all. He knew he was being watched. Cameras followed every step, every glance, every awkward exchange with the press, freezing the unease in real time.
All of this chaos, support for the monarchy has now hit a record low.
What most people missed was the urgency in Harry's every move. He wasn't in the UK for nostalgia. This was about survival, relevance, maybe even redemption. Call it whatever you like, but it wasn't casual. This trip was calculated, and insiders insist the calculations weren't his. Multiple sources claim Meghan orchestrated the entire visit from behind the scenes, from the events Harry attended to the people he was photographed with. Every moment was mapped out to prove one thing, that Harry still mattered and that the Sussex name still carried weight. But on the ground, the reception told a different story. Royal aides reportedly treated him like an invited guest speaker rather than family. They were cordial, polite, but unmistakably cold. It was like they were doing him a favor just by acknowledging he was there. Even among old friends, something felt off. The same people who once laughed with him, drank with him, played polo, and jetted off on wild trips now kept their chats short and surface level. Some friends didn't show up at all. And the ones who did, they came alone, without their wives. Nobody wanted to risk becoming the next character in a Sussex Netflix storyline. Harry kept the smile plastered on, posed for photos, and delivered a polished speech about unity and service. But beneath that smooth exterior, control was slipping. Every line he spoke sounded carefully filtered through a PR machine, words that felt less like Harry's own and more like they'd been pre-approved by Meghan's camp. One royal reporter even tweeted that Harry looks like a man auditioning for a role he used to own. The press pounced instantly and headlines started to flood in. Is Harry just a puppet now? Meghan's invisible hand? The same media that once defended them suddenly smelled blood in the water. And Harry? He couldn't outrun the narrative this time. Every gesture, every pause, every stiff handshake only fueled the image of a man being managed. Meanwhile, Meghan didn't have to show her face to dominate the room. She wasn't there physically, but her presence was unmistakable, felt in every move Harry made. Paparazzi snapped Meghan sipping coffee in California with a big-name Hollywood executive just hours after Harry touched down in London. She smiled for the cameras, posed effortlessly, and tossed out a few polished lines about new beginnings. Within minutes, social media was buzzing with speculation. Was she finished with the royal brand altogether? Was she already rebranding as a solo act? Or was this her way of letting Harry burn under the spotlight while she quietly plotted her next move from afar? Some insiders even suggest the London trip itself was her test, a way to see if Harry could still stand on his own and if the public would rally to him without her beside him. But instead of signaling a comeback, Harry's trip only showed how far he had fallen. The charm that once melted crowds now looked forced, and the easy confidence was replaced with visible hesitation. And the royal family? They didn't even try to hide their unease. King Charles kept his distance. William stayed locked on his own duties. Even the Queen Consort reportedly made sure not to be photographed alone with Harry. The message rang loud and clear. The institution wasn't ready to forgive, and Harry was no longer untouchable. Behind palace walls, whispers spoke not of respect but of quiet pity. Harry was once the beloved rogue who could have carved out a legacy of his own, but instead, he chose chaos. And now, as he walks those same palace halls with lowered eyes and strained smiles, he isn't seen as a rebel or a danger. He's become a living cautionary tale. Observers notice the difference instantly. No kids, no Meghan, no spark of fire, just a man trying to claw back something the world had already decided to leave behind. And deep down, Harry seemed to know it too. For the first time in years, he didn't just look out of place, he looked like he knew it, but completely out of power. Harry slipped back to California, quieter than he left. No big photo ops, no glowing airport reunion, just a few long lens shots of him ducking into their Montecito compound with his head down. And Meghan? She wasn't waiting at the gate. In fact, whispers claimed she was out of town altogether when he arrived. The silence spoke volumes. Sources close to the couple say they've been spending noticeably less time together, often traveling separately, taking solo meetings, and appearing side by side only when it's absolutely unavoidable. Insiders have even given it a name: intentional distance. And that label alone paints a very different picture of where things stand behind the glossy public facade. According to those in her circle, Meghan is laser focused on salvaging her brand. She's reportedly been holding high-level talks with producers and strategists, plotting a major pivot, one that has less to do with royal drama and everything to do with her own personal power. Her latest public moves tell the story clearly. Red carpet appearances, solo interviews, and carefully timed social media leaks all point to a woman deliberately detaching herself from the very narrative that made her famous in the first place. And Harry, he's not even in the frame anymore. There's growing buzz that Meghan is finished carrying the Sussex duo dynamic. She no longer wants to be half of a struggling brand. She wants to be the brand, standing on her own. The push to reinvent herself as a self-made mogul, free from royal baggage, has only intensified. And part of that baggage, at least in Hollywood's eyes, is now Harry. Executives are reportedly wary of backing projects that involve both of them together. One Netflix insider put it bluntly: the duo angle doesn't sell anymore. Meghan on her own? That's an entirely different conversation. The chatter is that she's better off putting distance between herself and a prince with fading star power, while focusing on projects that shine a spotlight on her ambition, her story, and her next chapter. Meanwhile, Harry looks stuck in limbo. He's not royal enough to be welcomed back into the monarchy, not independent enough to earn real respect in Hollywood, and not controversial enough to whip up media frenzy anymore. What's left is a man drifting between worlds with no solid anchor to hold on to. Friends say he's gone unusually quiet, skipping social events, dodging press calls, and steering clear of even casual paparazzi run-ins. Instead, he fills his days with surfing, biking, and walking the dogs. But no matter how calm those routines look, there's no mistaking the tension circling in his orbit. One close source put it bluntly: Harry is starting to realize that without the crown or Meghan holding him up, he has no clear identity in this world. And while nothing is confirmed, the latest rumors are fanning the flames. Meghan has allegedly been in touch with a powerful financier she's collaborated with before on past ventures. There's no proof of romance, but the whispers alone are enough to spark speculation, especially with the icy distance between her and Harry in recent weeks. Some insiders even believe she's using this alliance as leverage, a quiet warning that she can move forward with or without him. It's a ruthless game of optics, and Meghan plays that game with precision. Meghan knows exactly how to control the narrative. Harry, on the other hand, looks lost inside it. Every move he makes to step back into the spotlight feels like chasing a bus that's already pulled away. The charm is still buried in him somewhere, but the relevance is gone. Even the comment sections tell the story. Once overflowing with admiration and support, they're now laced with pity and doubt. Where's Harry? Why does he look so sad? Is Meghan replacing him? The questions keep stacking up, but the answers never come. Analysts warn this is the inflection point, the moment the public stops seeing them as a team and begins watching two separate stories unfold. The strategist, the survivor, the solo act, and then there's Harry,